Hello, everyone. This is Amy, and welcome to Bass and Boundaries, the absolute podcast that is going to be talking about all things mental health and music. So, if that's your kind of thing, stick around for the next drop. Hello everyone, my name is Amy and welcome to Bass and Boundaries. And today, for a second time, even though this will be the first time you're hearing this, I am joined by the lovely Antonia Rolls. We had a little bit of a blip yesterday, didn't we, lovely, with regards to how we were recording this, and then we decided to go ahead with it over Zoom. And sadly, Zoom's not letting us record it either. So I feel like sometimes these things happen. There must be like Mercury retrograde or something going on in the universe, but I'm recording this with my phone, so we're just going to go with it, and then let's just hope for the best on this one. So, my lovely, again, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody about how amazing you are and why you're here?
Well, thank you, Amy, and it's lovely to be chatting with you again. We had a humdinger of a chat last night, and I'm so sorry it didn't record, but this is also a humdinger of a chat, so that's good to know. My name is Antonia Rolls. I am an artist extraordinaire. I work with difficult subjects. My main language is painting, so I paint, and I work with difficult subjects such as end of life, addiction, suicide, and overdose and addiction deaths. This has been part of my life, and my response to it is through art. And I've created projects that raise awareness and bring consolation and light where people think there is none. That's what the aim of my work is. I've known Amy for a while. I live in Bognor Regis, and we are going to talk about bass and boundaries, aren't we, Amy?
We are today, my lovely. So we're going to speak about literally everything to do with mental health and how music helps us, but also, as we spoke about it yesterday, how mental health, it rings very personal to both of us, doesn't it? And you have such a story to tell with regards to your two beautiful sons that are sadly no longer with us. And I'd asked yesterday, didn't I, about how... So Dimitri was the musical one, wasn't he? So tell me all about him. Yeah. Tell everyone about that beautiful soul who I had the privilege to know, by the way, and sadly is no longer with us. But he had such a way with music, didn't he?
Oh my goodness, he did. I have, well, I don't know whether had or have, I have two sons who both died through suicide and addiction. The oldest one was called Costya, and he died when he was 29. They had a Russian dad. They've got lovely Russian names. And then my younger son, Dimitri, died when he was 27 a couple of years ago. And Dimitri was a kind of, I want to say a lost soul, but a beautiful soul and a very troubled one. It's almost as if neither boy was really meant for this world. And I think I can say that now. It's been about 3 years since Costya died and 2 since Dimitri died. But Dimitri was such a gifted musician. He played the piano beautifully. He was self-taught to begin with. Amy and I were talking about this yesterday. He didn't show any interest in music up till he was about 12, and then suddenly he could play the piano, and he started playing the piano, and he played classical music. And he was 6'7". He was a huge fella, and he had these long fingers, and they would play on the keys of the machine to watch this large person sit down with his large hands and play Debussy and Chopin and Liszt, from maybe about the age of 15. So yeah, music was his language. If he was in front of the piano, I knew he was happy.
And happy he was. I mean, I've personally heard, and I will be trying to in our podcast, I will try my absolute hardest to get the music that he'd actually he'd recorded himself a few times, hadn't he, but also other people had.
Yeah.
I'm going to try my hardest to get that, but if I can't do that, I will definitely upload them to my Instagram regardless, so people can go and check that out for themselves. But he had this beautiful he had a beautiful voice as well. And we said when we had, say, the last one, we said about how Kostya had a song, and I was thinking about Dimitri's song last night, and I said to myself, I think I know what it is, and I can hear it in my head, but I cannot remember what it is. Another Love. It was,
Yes,
and I heard him singing it, and I was like, oh, that's his song. That's 1,000,000% his song, because he was so good at it. But because Dimitri had such a way with music, Kostya was quite into his music as well, wasn't he?
He was, but he wasn't musical. Kostya hadn't discovered a kind of artistic outlet as such. He was really creative in how he looked and how he thought. He was massively intelligent. So was Dimitri. Both boys had tremendous mental health problems. Dimitri had agoraphobia and couldn't leave the house. So for many years, he couldn't even leave his bedroom. But he and Kostya loved each other. And that song, Another Love, that was Dimitri's song for Kostya. And after Kostya died, Dimitri sang that endlessly at the piano for Kostya. He just couldn't get over losing Kostya, even though both boys were mad addicts and alcoholics. Dimitri got worse and worse, and then obviously he took his life. But Kostya loved his music too, and he would always have his earphones in. He needed music day and night. I was saying to you yesterday that he had a very traumatic life and lifestyle. He was in a lot of danger a lot of the time with the drugs and the company he kept in order to get the drugs and what he did. And you'd think that listening to the music he listened to, you'd think it would be horrible music. It would be discordant and heavy and horrible. But it wasn't. It was beautiful music, lovely melodious songs, lovely tunes, and very hopeful. So he filled his mind with these beautiful, this lovely music. But he didn't actually play any instruments. And he didn't paint or draw, and he did try and write, but it was really, and Dimitri used to play the piano for him when they were both here in the house together.
It's so beautiful to know that they had that, regardless whether Kostya didn't pick up an instrument per se, but they both had that connection with music, whereas you don't have that connection at the moment, do you, because of the grief of losing your boys?
That's right. I'm the opposite. I can't listen to music at all. It just makes me cry. Any music makes me cry. Since the boys died, I have had to put all music away, and I'm better now. In the beginning, I couldn't even go into shops that had music playing because I would just cry and cry and cry. It's much better now.
Yeah.
I can go into shops, but I don't want to hear any music that I associate with the boys because it's too sad. It's too soon. But I'm hoping that one day I will be able to listen to music again. So I'm the opposite. My mental health relies on not hearing any music.
I suppose with you doing all your paintings as well, I suppose you're going to need that concentration element as well. Whereas for me, I have to have it on all the time. Like if I'm working, music has to be playing. For me, I find it a very much a concentration element of what I do. And, you know, like for instance, now we're not listening to music because we're recording a podcast, but I'm having to overly think. Whereas when I have something on in the background, I think better. And I think well, the main one for me at night time at the moment is noise. I like going to sleep with some element of white noise. Brown noise is a lovely one as well. And to be fair, the one that I love the most, which is ironic given I haven't been on a plane for years, is I love the sound of a plane. You know, when you kind of sat on a plane and it's that low, gentle hum. That's what I really, really enjoy listening to at the moment. And I think going to sleep with that on is quite therapeutic, which a lot of, and I think where a lot of fear has come from flying, actually, just by doing that, I'm actually ready to go on a plane again after all these years, because I think, well, I want to experience it. I want to hear that hum in the flesh, you know, as opposed to listening to it through a device or, you know, looking at all the places. I've been talking to people about going to America, and I talk to people all over the world on this app that I'm on, and we do a language exchange, and you know, and I talk to people from Japan, America, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and I'm like, I want to visit these places, but my own mental health and fears have held me back. Do you find that with you having, you know, do you find that, you know, with the grief or your own mental struggles, do you find that you've held yourself back throughout your life, or have you been one that just bounces straight into it and hopes for the best?
I think that it's a mixture of both, Amy. I do just go for things and work it out later. I do tend to decide to do things and then I go all in, do them, but I often haven't worked out how to pay for any of it, but it always works out.
It does. Life has a funny way of doing that. I have these discussions with, I've got a lot of friends and family that are very sort of, so I would say, you know, they've had jobs for 20 years. They have had the same life for years and years and years, whereas I'm kind of a floater. If I don't like a job, that's it. I'm going to find another job and I'm going to find out if that works for me. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I'm going to move on to the next one, you know. And I used to beat myself up about that, not feeling normal and not feeling like I'm like everybody else with, oh, well, they've been at their job for 15 years. Why can't I land a job for 15 years, you know? Because I realized that sometimes some of us are here to, and this is my opinion anyway, some of us are here to live this experience, but some of us are here for a bit more than that. And I think that you're like me, you are here to have a spiritual experience. You're here not for the money, the, you know, the car, the house. They're nice things, don't get me wrong. I love my car and I love driving. And no amount of fuel tax is going to get me on an electric car, but that's a story for another day. But you know, I'm a petrol head through and through, and I always will be. But I've always found, actually, I do beat myself up at times and think, well, why can't I be like everyone else? Why don't I fit in those situations? Have you ever felt like that? Like, do you feel like you don't fit in places?
Yeah, all the time. I completely understand what you're saying. I've never felt entirely normal. I am normal. I'm very normal. But I am, what could I say? I like to do things my way, and I like to take risks in a way, take a bit of a risk. I don't like the idea of staying still. Saying all this, I'm not a hugely ambitious person at all. I'm not very ambitious, and you're right. I don't really care very much about material things. Really, I do care because I've got them. You know, I like you. I've got a car and I've got a nice sofa to sit on, and I'm so grateful. I've got all those things, but I have this kind of need to keep creating and keep putting work out there and keep pushing the boundaries a little bit. And because my life has been quite testing, there's been a lot of, I've lost 2 husbands, and I've lost 2 sons, and I've lost, parents, and I've lost my lovely younger brother, and I lost cousins. There's been a lot of death and difficulty around me, and I was divorced from my first husband. I raised the children on my own, which is not a very good thing to do and not easy.
No,
and I
it's
don't
not.
recommend at all, and don't recommend it. But there wasn't any way out at the time for me. But all these experiences have kind of gelled together, and I've used art to kind of describe them and to try and, I don't know, find comfort for myself and offer comfort to other people. And I'm really keen on naming things. I don't like the idea of pretending things haven't happened, like suicide, or falling into a kind of pit of darkness, which we all do. We all fall into these pits of darkness, and after losing people, we do that. We have to do it. We can't just have someone die and say, well, that's all right, I'll be fine. But all these experiences, they have the potential of making us very wise and making us very resilient. And they can, if we choose, make us very compassionate and very strong and very powerful. And we can do a lot of good. We can find purpose and meaning in our suffering, in what's happened. And we can be very helpful and give back to other people. And that's where I am now. I'm hoping nobody else dies. I really don't want to lose any more people. I feel like I've had enough of it, actually.
I can imagine.
But then I couldn't stop it if it did happen. I would just have to accept it and get on with it if it did happen. But I'm hoping that God won't let me have to suffer that again for a little while.
Yeah, I was going to say, with how quick you lost your sons, like, it was even, although I wasn't close to Costya, but I knew of Dimitri, and I spoke to him several times, and he gave me some really great advice, and he was such a sweetheart, and I still have him as a Facebook friend, and those kinds of things, and you just think, oh, bless you. You do every now and again, you get a Facebook clear out and you just go through the people that you don't speak to, but I've got several people that have passed away on there, and I just can't bring myself to get rid of them because they're kind of still there, if that makes sense. My dad's Facebook is still very much there, and very often I go back on his Facebook and I scroll back to when I was pregnant with my eldest daughter, and this is just his witty humour. I'm going to be a granddad, it's my daughter's, but I was the only child. And it's like, Dad, like, really? Like, and he announced that he was such a proud granddad, but because he had MS, he couldn't hold Lily properly, and he had to, but he really tried. And I think he was very much, he suffered so much with his MS, and my auntie, she's filled in the gaps for me over the last couple of years about his life and what I didn't know. And one thing was for certain, he was so talented with his music, and but he was also a Jack the Lad. If he was today's generation, he would have been an ADHD candidate. Absolutely. Like, he was definitely one to push boundaries. And then I was born, and I'm not like my mother in that my mum's very the polar opposite of me, but I am very much my father's child. And I kind of used to have a lot of trouble with that because I didn't have a brilliant relationship with him up until the very end. But I'm quite proud of it because he did not care what people thought of him. He would just go and do what he wanted to do. And he would do it in a way that was actually admirable. And I look at that now and I think, yeah, like I get that from him. I'm definitely my father's child. And I look at that with your boys, with you, they got so much talent from you. And I believe as well that they were probably like, you know, even like my dad, they lived a spiritual experience. But they were on borrowed time. And I hate that, because always the best people go so early, and it hurts me. But you know, and I always say to my kids, you know, should the time come when I go, I hope I am remembered until I fade into that, you know, into history, that she was fearless and I did what I wanted because I knew it was for the greater good. And it was, you know, that compassion inside of, like, you know, and I see it in you too. You kind of have, I can only describe it as a light is switched on. And I meet people where the light's not switched on. They're just here. And
Absolutely.
And I feel it too. Do you, when you meet someone sometimes and you think, oh, I don't know about you, you know, that is there like an icky feeling, if you like. And I've met people like that, and they've actually impacted my mental health quite significantly, actually. And some have been relationships and even family where you think, you are in my life for a reason, but it's not for a good reason. And isn't it funny how we allow in our darkest moments people to really get in there? And, you know, I don't know about you, but when you're doing really, really well, people don't tend to bother. But if things aren't good, they tend to come sniffing about. They want to know what's going on, what's the drama, what's the gossip. And you know, and that's why I used to be very, very open about my problems online, but I don't do it as much now, because actually it's more peaceful when you are going through some form of suffering, but you haven't got every man and his dog wanting to know your business from the town over, you know?
Yeah. Yes. There's a lot in that. I do think that we have to have a great deal of what we don't want before we know what we do want. You know, we aren't born knowing what we want very much. Well, sometimes we are. I was born knowing I was an artist, but actually the journey to being an artist was far from straightforward or easy. But I think that, you know, when we meet people and we feel that there's a darkness about them, it's very testing for us. And I think the worst kind of people are our real teachers.
Yes.
They really are our teachers, you know, and we don't get the lessons straight away. And we may not get them for years even. And we may take up with and have relationships with people who are really not compatible with us, but we do it anyway, because we just need to learn. This is about learning. You know, if we have no challenges and nothing ever goes wrong for us, we are possibly the most boring person anyone has ever met, you know? So I think that people who have had challenges and have come through them are fascinating. As for meeting people who the light is not switched on, I feel very sad for those people. I meet a lot of them as well.
Yeah.
And I'm because, well, I am Catholic. I'm a practicing Catholic. And I feel very strongly that prayer works. And I just pray for people, because I think that is all I can do. I can't interfere with people's lives, and I can't ask leading questions unless they want me to. But I can just pray for them. And I feel I would love for whatever is making that darkness stay with them, I would love for it to lift, but I would never know whether it does or not. But I think as well, some people are very addicted to their darkness and they love it. They identify themselves as the person in the darkness. And that's very wearing for other people.
It
you know,
is.
when you get people, yeah,
It is.
who what is it? They let the worst thing that happened to them define them. That's
Yes.
who they become.
And that used to actually be me years ago. When I mean, obviously, I've been through domestic abuse several times, sadly, and you know, you try and see the good in people, and it's not until you're in that relationship that you realize, gosh, you really aren't who I thought you were. You're not the person I fell in love with, you know. But one thing's for certain, when you're gaslighted so much, you're put down so much, oh, you did this and I only do this because of you. I only, you know, I never said that, you know, those kinds of things. And you feel yourself going crazy. When you leave, it's going to go one of two ways. And I was very lucky that for the most part, I left situations where I said it wasn't my fault and that I didn't deserve that. But there has been times where maybe if I'd have just been better, maybe, but I'm, you know, and then you kind of get, I think they call it, in some situations, they call it like battered wife syndrome, where they stay knowing that they feel like they're at fault, that the abuser is the way he is because of that, them effectively. And when people I've left and, you know, or gone through these experiences, well, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just do that? You know, because the mind is the complex thing. And we've got 10 minutes apparently. You know, the mind is a complex thing, and sadly it's not that straightforward. And so I think for the most part, a lot of people, especially that have fled abuse or they've gone through it, they kind of have this ideology sometimes that they feel like it is their fault and they're worthless. And I want people to know that if you're sitting in that darkness and you're sitting in that what happened to you, or you're sitting in those situations, there is light within you. And you can get out of it. It's almost like you're trapped in a well, but one step at a time, you're climbing out of that well, and it will happen. And then, you know, I'm not going to sit and say that sometimes I don't cry over things that have happened to me, because I do. Of course I do. I'm human. But it's going, wow, I survived that. Wow, I'm actually I'm a badass for surviving that. Wow, I don't let people talk to me with disrespect anymore. I will cut somebody off because I can, you know. And I know that when you've been in darkness, you've always got yourself out of that well too. And I just want to say how admirable it is to, you know, to interview you, so that other people can see that, you know, you've gone through some of the worst possible things a human can go through, but you're here shining. And I think that's so admirable.
Oh, well, thank you, Amy. I was going to say that what you were describing with the battered wife syndrome is the codependent relationship.
Yes.
And I was going to say that is what happens in addiction too. I mean, when I had maybe 15 years of complete toxic and chaotic relationship with Costya, with his alcohol and drugs, you know, even from a teenager onwards. And I see how easy it is to be codependent, because you love and hate the person at the same time, but you can't see how you can be without that person. And part of you feels very guilty that they are the way they are.
Yeah.
But in fact, when you come out of it and you start recovering, you see that actually, you know, you did play a part, not you, but we did play a part in the relationship, but we're not the bad things that we believed that we are. I just want to touch on Beloved as well, the exhibition, because I think people might want to know when we talk about coming through things and using art. I have created this exhibition called Beloved, and it's bringing suicide and addiction deaths into the light. And this was created in response to losing both Costya and Dimitri, because on the night that Costya died, I had this kind of download. I thought I'd never sleep again. And I had this download where in the night I actually saw the darkness that surrounded him. I saw it physically, and I saw how evil, how malicious, and how powerful it was, and how destructive it was, and how it was looking for other people. It wasn't finished. It had destroyed one person, and it was off for the next. And I saw that it could come for me. And I saw at the same time the light, which was so beautiful and so powerful, but was unobtrusive. You know, the darkness was the big I am. It was strutting about. It was swirling around. But the light was just this beautiful light. And I saw that night, darkness and light. And I also knew I was going to do this exhibition, and the word beloved came to me that night. And the beloveds are those who have died before of suicide, drugs, alcohol, in darkness, despair and anger and violence, all those things. And they have gone into the light, and their job in the light, these beloveds, is to come down and take the soul of the newly dying person who might be dying in an alleyway, who might be dying in desolation, taking their own life, who might be overdosing. And they come down looking as they were when they were alive, so as not to frighten a new soul. And they take this soul up into the light, and they say, come with me now, you're free, you're safe, the pain is over. And they go to this lovely recovery place in the light. And at some point, if they choose to, they can also become beloveds. So this whole thing came that night. And then, and I started to paint these paintings. So Beloved is showing all around the place, and people can find out. Actually, they'd have to look on my social media, because my
I would
website
link
is
everything. I will link everything, don't worry.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, the thing with that, the link with Dimitri, is that just before Dimitri died, I said to him, do you think that Kostya's darkness has come for you? And he said, definitely.
Wow.
And that's the danger. That darkness found it couldn't get me, but it could get Dimitri. And it got him. And it persuaded him to hang himself. And he did. Terrible, eh?
It is, and I do believe that. I do believe that there is so much darkness. I wish we could, honestly, I could do a whole we should definitely do a whole podcast about darkness.
We'll do another one, Amy.
Yeah, we'll just do another one, because we've only got 4 minutes left until it kicks us off. But honestly, I'm going to, at the end of this anyway, I'm going to link all of your social media so people can come and follow you, just like how I found you. I found you on YouTube, of all things, just scrolling through my feed on the, sort of the recommended videos, and you were there and you were talking about what you did, and it was about being a soul midwife, and, how you help people who were dying, and that's where I went, I need to reach out to this lady. I don't know why. I don't know what was going on. And I did. And here we are. And we've been firm friends for years. We went through all of COVID together, didn't we? We met up during the COVID days. Gosh. Wow. That was history. We did. And we still do. We're still writing it. But I believe that we've met for a reason. The universe, God, spiritual, whatever it is that people believe in, they put us on this path. We've been in previous lifetimes, no doubt, before. But I always believe that we meet people for a reason, and whether it's a good or a bad, we learn from it, we grow from it, but we have to also look after ourselves. So
we certainly do, Amy. It's been lovely to talk to you.
And it's been lovely to talk to you, and you've been an absolute treasure. Thank you for allowing me to do this again, given that last night was a bit of a fiasco, wasn't it? So
well, it was. We have to say that my voice recorded, but yours didn't.
No, it didn't. I was like, really?
Terrible.
So yeah, it's definitely something I've got to try and figure out. But yeah, that's the joy of technology. So, but thank you so much for coming on. And if you are still listening, and thank you very much for listening. Antonia Rolls is all over social media. Please go and follow her things. I will link it all in Spotify description, or on YouTube. I will put it in there as well. But yes, thank you so much, my lovely. And yes, we will do this again.
Okay, Amy, God bless you.
And you, my lovely. Take care. Bye. Hi, this is Amy with a little end word after that beautiful podcast that I did today with my friend Antonia Rolls. The beauty of Antonia is that I believe that most people, good or bad, come into our lives for a reason. And I've learned so much from Antonia. And again, I highly advise that you find her on, especially YouTube. That's where my journey with her started. And the beautiful exhibitions that she does around the UK. She's been a consistent in my life for many years. We can go weeks without speaking, but we pick up where we left off. And that's the friendship that I wish to have with many people. And I'm very blessed to have that with Antonia. So thank you so much to you for coming on, and thank you to those out there that are listening in. I really appreciate the support. You know, getting this off the ground isn't easy when you are in line with many, many competitors, but I will continue to do it because I enjoy doing it. And I think when you enjoy doing something, it doesn't matter about those things. It's about having the passion and the purpose to be able to do so. So before I go, there are 3 songs that I've been listening to today, and I want to share them with you. So number 1, Delirium by Delta Heavy and Subsonic. It's fantastic. Always puts me in a good mood. The Light That Leads Me by Netsky or Netsky, it depends where you're from, and BB Rexa. Which is ironic, really, given that today we've just been talking about, the light and, getting out of darkness. And again, coming back to one of my favorite artists, who is Graphics, and I was listening to Memories today, which is a really cracking one too. These ones have been out for a while, but I love them. And also Ascension by Andromedic. I like to think he's quite a spiritual one with the tunes that he writes. So anyways, until the next one. And if you want to come on board to feature on my podcast, my email address is baseandboundaries@gmail.com, or you can find me on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, and obviously on Spotify too, and YouTube. So take care, guys. And just remember, if you're not feeling great right now, you can absolutely climb out of that well, because you are absolutely full of light. Take care.